For this video, I'm going to be changing out the shower valve. So I have in my bathroom, it's an old one that doesn't have the mixer valve in there. So if you've ever been in an older home, somebody flushes the toilet, you get this surge of hot water. So these newer valves have that ability to essentially compensate for that. But it's going to involve heating up all four of these joints at once to be able to pull out the existing pipe. There's a lot of tools you need to be for cleaning the pipe on the inside. So what you're gonna do is if you're gonna reuse the pipe, you have an existing solder on there. You need to get that solder off clean, completely cleaned, almost like it's a new pipe before it goes into here. And you also have to clean off the existing, the new, what you're gonna do, just because there's oils and things like that. So you can clean the outside, sometimes the inside, but at least the outside. A torch. I like to use the MAP gas. It's a little bit hotter than the propane, I believe. And since you're doing that, and you're going to be working in a confined space, they make these fire retardant material so that you can put it behind whatever you're doing, and the flame can actually hit this, and it won't light something random on fire. Especially since if you're working in a tight area, definitely have a fire extinguisher close. If you're cutting, cutting tools, pliers, anything like that. And also you want to, after you turn off the water, make sure you drain the water, because there's water still in there and there's air pockets in it. So usually you go to the lowest part of the house. I have a basement luckily here, so I can open up the faucets here in the basement, and it'll start, the gravity of pushing the water down will help, and then go up to the highest part of the house and then open some of the faucets, and then that'll provide equalize the pressure so that it can flow down. Working, especially go into the shower, whatever you're working at, open the valves there, do the check or the valves to open up the shower, open up the tub, hot and cold, all of that, just so you can make sure everything's drained out of there. So you want to start off by removing the existing valve. So it's usually the handle, there's a plate. Everyone will be a little bit different, but you're really just trying to get to the back end valve that you want to replace. So you're going to have to pull off this plate here. And then the valve was underneath here. Now obviously you want the water turned off, as I said before, because as soon as you pull this off, it would be pressure down there. I like to put a towel sometimes just to kind of catch any drips. You can see I was having an issue getting this thing out because it was pretty stuck in there, so I kind of wiggled it around a little bit trying to get it out. Finally was able to just get annoyed with it and pull it out with a wrench. And I like to look around in there just because who knows, been decades of dust inside just random paper before I start shooting a torch up in there. So like I said, just look in all the directions, vacuum out any dirt, any debris, anything, because that when you're heating up the pipes, you don't know where the flame could be exactly. So make sure you take out the valve of the one you're replacing it with. Just a good thing to do, just so you don't end up melting that, because you're gonna have to heat this up and solder it, so you have to have that out. You just want only metal there. So I like to take a look at what I got here. I actually had a problem here. I don't know how they did it, but somehow they put a hole in the 2x4, were able to solder this and get it in there without any burn marks. I'm not really sure. It was kind of a mystery. But I like to take the new one, put it up there, kind of get an idea how it's going to lay out before I start cutting anything. If you have a tub spout like I had here, I took that one off because it's difficult to get all four of those pipes disconnected moving on there. This one has, like I said, a bit strange attachment that I got put on afterwards, so I have to cut that off. So I started just heating it up here. You can see trying to get it heated up, melt the existing solder that's on there, and you can see why I have that torch, or sorry, that material in the back there, because you're having to heat it up and there's just a torch against your back. You see, I had issues with this and then just realized I might as well just cut it. This was the easiest, just using an oscillating tool just to cut all the pipe, because I put up the new valve and looked at it, and it was actually quite a bit larger, so I didn't really need that. So I went through and cut all the pieces. except the last one did that a little bit later here. But you'll see I put the valve up there, and I could see that I had plenty of room or plenty of extra pipe, so this was fine. I didn't need to store that. But you can see even with that little bit of torching that was doing with the flame, that it was burning the wood behind. Actually, I ended up replacing mine because it was old. But you can see here, so I have plenty of pipe that are left over, that just cutting that, there was no reason to try to save it and just all that fuss, because it's really hard to heat all four joints up and pull them out separately. And so you want to use emery cloth, or if you don't have sandpaper or something like that, just clean off the existing. I'm going to cut this, but I still wanted it flat so that when I'm cutting it with the tool on some of these, that I'm cutting at a square angle, so I'm not, kind of cockeyed here. So what you want to do is have it clean enough where this fits on with just a bit of a tight fit on there, and that's what you're looking for. So I'm lining it up on that one that I cleaned off, because that was the one that the correct distance that I wanted. But I just want to make sure everything else was lined up, there was nothing offset, and that once I slide down, it's going to be on there. And I also want to measure. So don't make the mistake and cut it at the end. You want it to actually reset in there. And here so I still need to cut it, but it's got quite a bit of solder on there. So what I'm doing is heating up, because it takes a while to sand it. And also you might end up doing some of the pipe or some of the copper. So I like to kind of heat up and just scrape it off, or use a towel and get some of it off. I found it a little bit easier, especially when it's really caked on like that. And if you notice, I switched to a new material in the back there. And make sure you always have the up. These are marked like this. So make sure you have that up, so you're cutting everything to the right dimensions here. And so I'm just using a little mini one because I need to cut this part where I'm trying to, I want to do a nice cut, unlike the oscillating tool. So I use this little mini. You'll start noticing I get these more cuts start ending up on my hands. I probably should have been using gloves because I kept getting cut on the tile. But here I got it lined up, so you can see it has the right distance. It's sitting in there about 1/2 inch. Or so, and then so if it's lined up with that one and the other one, so I'm just trying to get all three of these dimensions correct, so that when I put it in there, it is correct and I can actually fit it on. And so you want to clean out the inside, just kind of like you did with the outside. They make a different tool for this one, so just again clean it off, because it's going to be fitting in there. You want this clear before you put any of the flux, so the flux goes on all around and all sides, all the pieces. Sometimes it might be a little restricted. You might have to get in kind of behind a little bit better. And then it goes on the inside so it goes on both joints, the interior and the external. So you want it just nice and coated in there so that the solder can flow. And as you see, I have it kind of, I'm able to move it around a little. You don't want it too tight, and you don't want any of them at an off angle, because if they're not perpendicular or directly in there, then the flux can settle incorrectly and not make a good seal. So you can see I have all three. I don't have the tub one yet, but you can see I have a little bit of a play in there, so I know it's not, none of the pipes are in there at an odd angle that would be forcing them into, again, where the flux couldn't flow correctly. Here I'm just kind of demonstrating all the cuts on my hands that I'm enjoying that kind of hurt for a couple days afterwards. And so so I got the old one, I got the tub. So I was just using this setup block, so I'm going to use the pipe as a reference when I go to cut it. I know I need it a little bit, like 3/8 inch longer. So I start off, so I'm doing this tub one because I just need to replace it all. So I'm just kind of showing you exteriors here, how it's done. So cleaned it off, flux both the sides. So I'm just doing this is the 90-degree joint where the tub comes out. And here's what it looks like. So you notice I'm heating up, but I'm not putting the solder into the flame. I want the heat on the pipe is the only thing that melted, and that's what helps it flow correctly. But both joints are to the correct heat, so that it flows in that joint, and that's what the flux helps to do. If you stick it into the flame, you're getting an artificial. It may not be heated up correctly. And if you look inside the joint, it's kind of hard to see here, but you should see a little bit of flux up to the crack there, and that's how you know you have a good seal. So here I'm taking that, or transferring that measurement. I'm using an old knife here just because that was the easiest. You don't want to scratch it or weaken the pipe, but I'm doing it right where I'm cutting the joint, so I figured it would be okay. And so this is the measuring or cutting the distance. This will go from the tub spout up into the valve. And so you cut it off. There's usually a little triangle piece you can flare out that end that got dented, and then again just cleaning it off. So I wanted I had to run it up actually behind the wall, so it's hard to film that, but you can see all 4 joints are in there. And you want to have everything in here before you start soldering, because it's trying to go back and forth is really difficult. And we need to make sure, again, just double check there's no valve in there, that before you start heating it up, because that thing will melt and you may never get it out again. So I'm just showing you here. So what I meant by going back and forth is what you're trying to do is heat up the whole joint. So that brass valve takes a while to get heated up, but it really helps to have that. So you can see it took a little while to get to the first joint. I have to speed it up, but you want to do all 4 joints, and you want to be able to just have that continuous heat, so you can keep moving from one to the other. If you were trying to go back and forth, it would be really difficult. So here's the tub valve. I have it, see, it went up there, and I just added a screw-on valve because that's how it connects. And then I put the actual valve. I keep saying valve for that brass. That's the valve body, and this is the actual valve that's in there. So it usually has a clip. Just follow the manufacturer's manual on how you put that back in. And then you want to go and turn back on the water once you have it all sealed. And here I'm putting it back together, again just following the manual, but what you really want to do is when you turn on the water, make sure there's no leaks. I usually like to leave it for an hour or two, maybe even a day, but just I would test that out, check, turn it on and off here just to make sure it's working before you put all this back on. But that's really, you want to avoid any leaks. Check behind the wall. So once you get it on, turn it on. You should have got to this point. Make sure it's going to go down to the tub spout if that's what you have. It'll go down there first. Obviously pull this up, make sure then it's going to the valve on the top. So again, I would be checking the leaks where I would previously done all that. And I like to go and just make sure that the hot water is mixing in there. But at this point, should be all done. Hopefully there's no leaks and you successfully have a much better valve.